really one of the most clutch players. Had an immense effect on our program last year, even though he was only here 1 year. But just a lot of respect and admiration for Danny's career over the course of 13 seasons. You can't say enough good things about him. I mean, what he's done, his toughness. I mean, there's 1,000 examples of that I had the good fortune of firsthand to seeing. But great career, great person, will always be a Houston Texan. The door is always open for him, and he's a Texan native. So, but congratulations on his retirement. So, with that, I'll take some questions and we'll kind of get moving here.
Mark, you want to start us off?
Nick, is there anything that you can add for what y'all already said about Darius Anderson? What he went through?
Yeah, I would say it's an ongoing investigation. I would say there's a lot of misinformation that's been out there from the beginning, so I really don't want to get into a lot of speculation. Darius has cooperated every step of the way, so at some point there'll be a resolution. But other than that, I don't really have any additional comment.
Nick, where do things stand with Derek Stingley and what he's going to be able to do? How much do you guys expect for him throughout training camp?
Yeah, no, we have different players in kind of different categories, so the big thing is just making sure a player is physically able to do the things that are going to be required of this position. Say Derek's had a good attitude. Our sports performance team has done an outstanding job kind of getting him ready. So he'll be out here at practice today. He'll be able to get involved in some things. So we'll take it one day at a time, and every situation we evaluate everything on a day-to-day basis. But Derek's attitude has been good. He's gotten some really good work in here, I would say, over the last 5 to 6 weeks. Been able to get some work done here over the last few days as well. So it's just one day at a time, and certain players are in different categories. Have a group of players on PUP. We have some players that are off of PUP, but that we're going to manage from a load standpoint. So every player, we kind of evaluate their situation, kind of make the best decision. But Derek's been, his attitude's been good, and he's been good to work with. So we'll see how it goes.
How about
Aaron, go ahead.
Look at where he is now, the offseason he's had. How are you feeling about Davis and the work he's done?
Yeah, I think we're going to find out about everybody here during the course of training camp. That's what training camp is for. I think the spring you're able to evaluate some things, and training camp you're able to evaluate more. So it's going to be one day at a time. We just want to try to make incremental progress. I mean, our expectations for the players is the same. It's show up, work hard, have a good attitude, be a good teammate, take coaching, and improve. And if you do those things, then you'll have an opportunity to become a better player. So that's what the expectation is today, tomorrow, thereafter. And then once we get to the season, we get to the season. I think real football really starts on Monday when we get to, we get to pads. So today, this is another kind of an extension of an OTA practice. Tomorrow's another kind of an OTA practice. And then once we get to Monday, we'll be able to assess some things that are a little bit more applicable to what actually is going to take place on the football field.
Nick, specifically on Davis, what stood out in the offseason, just specifically on him, that impressed you the most here?
Yeah, good attitude. He was in good shape, improved his lower body strength, so he's had a good attitude. He was able to work on some things mechanically. So, again, it's going to be about accumulating days consecutively over the course of multiple weeks. It's not going to be about one day, about one practice, about one particular play for any player. So every player is going to have opportunities. Our job is to evaluate those opportunities and do what we think is best. So I'd say the quarterback room is a good room. They've all had a good attitude. They've all worked hard. They had opportunities in the spring. I mean, spring is kind of, 7-on-7-ish. And say a little bit like that as well. So when you start to add elements of pads, you add elements of the running game, it just adds a little bit more diversity to the offense. So I think as we go here this week, next week, into the preseason, we'll get a better understanding of where everybody is.
We'll go Christy and then Rose.
I know you talked a lot about progress and in the process, but what do you feel is a reasonable expectation for this team as far as wins and losses this season after what y'all been through the past couple years?
Yeah, it's a good question, Christy. I'm not in a prediction business or speculation business. Our job is to kind of take it one day at a time. Just come in with the right attitude, work hard. I mean, I can't measure progress. That's not my job. You guys can have fun with that about how many games we're going to win, what games we're going to win, who we're going to play well against, who we're not going to play well against. Our job is to come in each day, try to improve, try to have a good practice, come in, evaluate what happened, come out the next day, and make some progress. So there's going to be some good days, there's going to be some bad days, but can we stack more good days than bad days together during the course of training camp? And then once the season starts, then we have one opportunity, 17 weeks, to go out there and actually perform at optimum level. So we're going to do the best we can with those opportunities when they present themselves. Now the focus is on camp. It's about work. It's about individual and collective improvement as a team.
You mentioned John Mechie. Obviously, it's more important on the field than on. But I mean, what do you have in place kind of to make up the gap with John not being here? I mean, how do you weigh possibly adding a player? What do you see? And how have y'all prepared for the offense without him?
Yeah, I mean, you never really know what's going to happen with the players. You always have contingency plans in place. So I would say, just generally speaking, our philosophy is if there's an opportunity that presents itself that makes sense for our team on a multitude of levels, then we'll consider it. And if there's not, then we won't. And then we know that the group that we have, they'll get the opportunity first. And if there's something externally that we can look at and evaluate, we'll consider it. But I wouldn't say there's one definitive answer. So we have a lot of good players in that group, have had varying degrees of production. So, you know, we're a few days into camp here, so they're going to have more opportunities. So as we go, I mean, take Amendola as an example. So Amendola wasn't here all training camp. He shows up the first week of the regular season. He goes out there as a leading receiver and catches 2 touchdowns. I don't know. Is there somebody else out there like that? There might be. There may not be. Our job is to evaluate the league. There's going to be X number of players that are going to be available later in August. So our job as a personnel department is to canvass the league, understand where there may be some extra numbers, where there may be a surplus, and if there's a player that we might be able to bring in to offset something that we may or may not have, then we'll consider it and look at it. But I wouldn't say there's one definitive answer, one definitive person, or one definitive player that is going to make up for anything.
Are there any particular position groups that you might target, given that you have some guys from the few people?
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, we have 91 players on the roster, including Deo, who kind of counts as an extra. So, you know, we're practicing probably roughly with about 80 players on a day-to-day basis. So if we start to lose some players, if we need to supplement our depth somewhere. So you're really balancing off 2 things. You're really balancing off camp depth, what are your needs for camp, and then kind of thinking ahead to what are your needs going to be in a regular season. We're going to have the opportunity to work with 70 players come, you know, the end of training camp. 53 on the roster, 16 in the practice squad, and then Deo kind of is our international exception. So however we get to that end point, I'm sure it's going to take a lot of different twists and turns. So we'll take it one day at a time, and then we'll evaluate as we go.
I know you said mention.
Brandon, go ahead, one more, and Brandon, go ahead.
Just quickly, I know you said mention. You all didn't know in the spring. When exactly did you all find out?
It was a new situation. So I would say in middle of July or whenever. Middle to end of July. It was a little bit before training camp is kind of when this all took place. So that's where I ran it.
What did you remember from last year that you think might help you guys going into this training camp and throughout the season?
Yeah, I understand the question. Really not focused on what happened last year. To focus on the 2022 season and kind of the players that are here. So what happened last year, candidly, doesn't really have any relevance or impact on what's going to happen this year. So we're all kind of starting new. It's a new year. It's a new opportunity. A lot of new players, some new coaches. So I think that's where the focus is right now.
What about the relationship with Lovey? What are some of the things you guys have sort of collaborated on since the spring and going through the summer to now?
Sure, yeah, we talk every day. I mean, he's right next to me, so, you know, we talk about whether it's a roster, whether it's a player, how we're structured in practice, what are some of the things, and kind of there's a mutual understanding and respect. I respect his opinion. Hopefully he respects my opinion on some things, but ultimately we want to do what's best for the team and the Houston Texans, and that's what we'll try to do on a consistent basis. Let's get somebody else that maybe hadn't answered one yet, asked one yet. Yep.
We know what the coaches are doing out here as far as training camp is concerned from the evaluation standpoint, but from a general manager standpoint, what are you looking forward to as far as training camp is concerned?
Yeah, really, the focus is on the team. You know, the focus is on the players. I mean, stand back there, evaluate practice, and just watch the player. And you're not necessarily getting caught up in one player, one play. They all have talent. They all have the opportunity to make a play. It's really about consistency day to day and who are the players that we can actually depend on over the course of long stretches of time. So I think the focus is on the product on the field, focus on the players. There's a million things that go on to run a football team. There's a million things that go on in training camp. So try to address the things that maybe have some relevance or are important, and other than that, try not to get too caught up in things that, you know, may or may not matter.
Nick, what do you tell rookies on if this is their first go-around, their first training camp? What's your message to the rookies?
Yeah, don't do anything different. You know, it's not anything new. Football's football, but you hopefully have prepared yourself for the rigors of what you're going to see during training camp. So the spring is new. I would say there are varying degrees of conditioning, varying degrees of preparedness in the spring, but they've had the opportunity to acclimate themselves to our program, some of the things that we're doing. So now it's just another layer in their overall development. So some players maybe move a little bit faster than others. I would say even the practice structure. So OTA-ish the next couple days, then they have a day off on Sunday, and then we're going to go 3 straight days in pads, and I'm going to take a day off. So kind of getting into the big thing this time of year for a younger player is being able to establish a consistent routine. What are you doing on a day-to-day basis? What time do you get in the building? What do you need to do before practice? Here's my checklist. And we have resources and people that are here that can help guide them if they don't really have an understanding. this isn't college where the GA is going to go wake him up in the dorm, make sure he gets over, sit with him for breakfast, go take his test, and then get him on a practice field. Like, we don't do that. Like, it's your responsibility. I would say Lovey's philosophy is you're grown-ass men, and we're going to treat you like men, and we're going to hold you accountable. And if you do something wrong, you're going to be held accountable. It's not about rules. It's about standards and upholding a standard of performance and excellence. So the quicker the player understands that, then it's going to be to his advantage. So some take a little bit longer than others, but overall I think that group specifically has a good attitude. They're good kids. They work hard. And then you have players like Kirksey. You have players like Brandon Cooks. You have players like Burkhead who have been in the league for a long time. And if I'm a younger player, I'm going to look at not necessarily what they do on the field, what are some of the things that they do on the field that has allowed them to have a productive career. So it's really being observant and really listening and watching. And if you have a question, don't be afraid to say, hey, Brandon, when you have an off day, what are some of the things that you do are important? So it's really about education, and we have people and resources that can help them if they're kind of misguided.
In consideration of what's happened with COVID 2 years ago and the distractions you've had, how good does this feel this year? Feel like you're going to have a, quote, normal setup to begin?
Yeah, sure. I think just societally, I think everybody feels that we're under more normal circumstances. I mean, I'm sure everybody was out all summer. I mean, literally, it felt like there were people everywhere, and I think everybody is just excited to get out. So whatever the circumstances are, we operate accordingly. So I think everybody be able to meet, be able to kind of be in a team environment on a consistent basis. COVID is here. COVID's not going anywhere, so there's going to be other things that pop up that you're going to have to deal with. But I think everybody's just excited about the opportunity to be here and try to get into a more normalized routine.
In terms of spending a summer with the coaching staff, in terms of spending a summer, it's the second time around, what are the things that you might have learned last year that help you approach and build toward the season, even with the new coaching staff?
Yeah, every year is different. So you spend a lot of time together in the course of the spring. So again, last year doesn't really have any relevance to this year. So what we did last year at this time may or may not have application this year. So again, each day go out there one day at a time, look at what we're doing. If there's something we need to adjust or modify that we can improve or make it better, then we'll consider it. But it's really about going out there each day and stacking days on top of each other, day after day.
You mentioned Derek earlier.
Go ahead.
Has something changed?
Excuse me?
You mentioned Derek earlier. Has something changed from when he joined the program to how he's not going to be a full go today? Was that always the plan?
No, I mean, Derek's status has been what it has been from the beginning. So, I mean, he's out here working. He's not doing any more or less than... We're not speculating about what a player can or can't do. When the player arrives, we evaluate the player. Where is he physically? Then we make an assessment. I mean, Derek's done a lot of stuff. I mean, from what he's done during the course of the spring, some of his testing metrics and numbers are better than anybody on the team. So I wouldn't say that he's necessarily in a limited capacity. There's just certain things that he hasn't experienced yet that he's going to have to go through. So any player, when you don't play football for over the course of the year, you sort of have to reacclimate not only the body but the mind as well to some different things. So it's about one day at a time, making progress that day, turning the page to the next day, and stacking days on top of each other. All right, one or two more.
John Bernard, is there something of a ramp up because he had the offseason recovery and just when he is healthy, how do you guys feel about him as a young defensive player?
Yeah, different players are in different categories. So I'd say John has the opportunity to grow from year 2 to year 3. So he's had a good attitude. He's in good condition. His strength is good. So he's going to get a lot of work here in training camp. So there's a lot of depth within that group. So I'd say there's a good chance we're going to play 8 or 9 guys on the defensive line. So what that constitution looks like, how that gets put together, we'll have a better idea here as we go. All right.
As a roster builder, talent evaluator, what's the timetable that you give yourself to evaluate specifically a young quarterback?
There's no timetable. I mean, you can't really put, I would say, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I've never been a person to have a timetable. So everybody goes in different cycles. It could be a few months, it could be a few weeks, it could be a full cycle, a full year. So there's no timetable. You take the information, you process it, you assess it, and you make a good decision. We don't have all day. The clock is spinning. But I would say within a 18 to 24 month period, you have some semblance of an idea of where you think a player is or is not going to be. It doesn't mean that can't change. There might be something that happens earlier that kind of slows that progress. So again, there's no timetable, there's nothing specific, so it's an accumulation of things over the course of time. And I think the word, if you want to use more than anything, is it's consistency. Can a player be consistent with what his job and what he's asked to do, understanding There's going to be some bumps in the road. There's going to be some ups and downs. But are you not an error repeater? Are you doing the same thing over and over? Are you making the corrections? Are you improving, getting better as a player? That's the most important thing.
Got a team back here.
Nick, you talked about the sense of normalcy with COVID, but what about the sense of normalcy surrounding this team now, especially given everything that was going on last year?
Yeah, I mean, look, my focus is on training camp and where we are right now. So however you define normalcy, I mean, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. So again, we're excited to be here. We're excited about the opportunity here in training camp. We're excited about this season. We got a lot of work to do. We got a lot in front of us, and it's going to take a lot of work and effort by a lot of people involved.
John?
As for right now, Nick, how much more comfortable are you as a second-year general manager as you were as a rookie?
I think you're always learning, John. So anytime you go into a new situation, a new endeavor, you're really not sure what to expect. So I think it's just kind of taking it one day at a time. I think my personality is such that I try to be fairly rational and pragmatic and not get too high, not get too low. You're going to have to deal with things. I mean, that's whether it's in football, whether it's in life, you never really know what's going to happen. So just trying to make sound, good decisions based on good information. I think that's the most important thing, where the focus is and it has always been.
What has been the process? I know you guys took some time off, but talking about information, what kind of was that transition phase from the spring and the summer to right now, like preparing for this?
For training camp?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, that window of 4 to 6 weeks, you're kind of decompressing, and you're kind of, all right, what are some of the things that, we accomplished during the course of the spring? What do we need to get done in training camp? So, honestly, I think over the summer it's important, and I try to do that, just take some time and sort of take your mind away from football. I mean, look, we all live in a world, there's a lot of other things going on in our world that are more important than football. We've had to deal with some things, I'd say, on a local level and even on a national level. So you have to be cognizant of what's going on in the world and not get so caught up in what's going on from a football standpoint. So it's important to get away, it's important to step away. Going back to what I said in the beginning, I think when you look at the players and the 95% participation, a number of players that were here, I think what that says is you have players that have the right mindset, have the right attitude, or are committed to work. Now it's going to be about performance and production on the field.
You mentioned some of the
Two more?
Yeah.
Okay.
some of the injuries, some of the players. I mean, with 3 preseason games, how do you weigh possibly playing them, seeing them? How do you weigh that?
Yeah, those will be discussions that are ongoing. So we have 2 kind of weeks before we really do anything, and really that 3rd week we're getting ready to play in a game. So how are we going to deploy certain resources, certain assets, who's going to play, who's not going to play? Those will all be decisions that we talk about collectively as a staff, and ultimately it's geared towards making the right decision, not only for the team, but for the player as well, and not lose sight of, in the end, the most important thing is to get ready for the opener against the Indianapolis Colts.
Nick, when you look going into this season after last year, having all the continuity and finding a foundation, does it become easier of knowing what you're looking for in players this training camp?
Yeah, nothing's easy. This league is as hard as any in the league, so it's a lot of hard work. And it's going to take a lot of effort and contributions from a lot of different people. So there's no one formula, 1 year. Everything changes from 1 year to the next. Nothing is, I would say, consistent. So the only thing that's consistent is the inconsistency, and you just sort of have to be prepared. You have to be able to adjust and adapt to your circumstances, whatever those might be. So I think that's the mindset and the attitude that we try to have, as a team, as a player, as an overall organization, and we'll continue to do that. All right. All right, have a good day, everybody.
Shout out to Trent here on